And welcome to today's edition of Dr. Carol's Couch. I'm your psychiatrist host, Dr. Carole Lieberman. Well, it's just me today, folks. I'm going to chat and chat and chat, talk your ear off. Um, I love actually doing, I used to call it Dr. Carole Rants at the News. So let's see, today there's only one and a half things that I'm going to rant about, but there are three topics that I'm going to talk to you about altogether. First of all, there's so many shocking news stories, so little time. And it's enough to make your head spin. So I, as a psychiatrist who specializes in analyzing the news and helping people take insights from it, in other words, not just the headlines, but going behind the headlines, and so that you can, the news you can use really, and news that you can use and not go crazy on. So we're going to be talking first about the case of Nancy Guthrie, the mother of Savannah Guthrie, the talk show host, well, a news anchor really, um, and she is missing. I presume a lot of you already know that Nancy Guthrie has been missing now for about 4 days. She's 84 years old. She supposedly does have her cognition intact. In other words, she doesn't have dementia or any kind of mental cognitive problem like dementia, but she does have physical problems. She has a pacemaker implanted in her, which means that she has some kind of arrhythmia, which means an odd rhythm, either an even an odd, well, in a rhythm of the heart that isn't, it's supposed to be like da dum da dum da dum da dum. And if someone has an arrhythmia, which means it's really without rhythm, A is without and rhythm, then you can end up with congestive heart failure because your heart isn't beating properly. It isn't getting the blood out to the rest of your body. So that's why they put in a pacemaker to make sure that it keeps pumping outside of the heart in a good regular kind of manner. Now, she also was taking some kind of medications, presumably medication for her cardiovascular system. Sometimes when you have a pacemaker, you're on blood thinners and you can be on anti-arrhythmic medication and perhaps even anti-congestive heart failure medication. To be honest, I don't know why we don't know this, because one would hope that her daughter and her other children know what medication she's on. Now, I know that some of it they're holding back because privacy and also because of cases. If you have a criminal case, you don't want to give too much out to the public because there are things that only the killer or in this case the abductor would know. And so but as far as naming the kind of medication she's on, there's really not a reason to not do that. And I'm telling you this story, I'm including this in one of the three that I'm talking about today. Not I mean, I don't think we're going to be able to solve it, although I do have my own ideas about what happened, but it's not to solve the crime today, but I mean, during the show, but it's to really convey something that I feel very strongly about, which is parents who are older. I mean, obviously, your parents are going to be older than you, but parents who, are perhaps past middle age. I mean, really, all parents, children, adult children, should be much more in touch with what's going on with their parents. And that is why this case really bothers me. Um, Her mother, let me tell you a little bit more. Her mother was living in $1 million home, very nice, but I think it was the family home, so I think she was living there for quite some time. And it was a nice home. It has a swimming pool and everything. Lots of land. Actually, all the homes in that area, this is in Tucson, but it's the rural part of Tucson. And all the homes near um, where Nancy Guthrie's home is are an acre each. And the reason, well, at least, And the reason why that's important is because, according to her doctors, she is not able to walk more than it's either 50 feet or 50 yards, but not enough to be able to walk to the next neighbor. So she is really isolated there. And and nobody else lives in the house, no housekeeper, for example, or anything like that. Um, her her security system obviously isn't very good if some abductor was able to get in, and um he had forced entry, but the door to the front door to the house was open. Now, open meaning unlocked when the sheriffs came. So let me start at the beginning. I'm sort of jumping into the part that just makes me the most angry, the fact that her kids weren't on top of her more, weren't more aware, weren't taking better care of her. Let's just tell it like it is. So here she is with these heart cardiovascular problems also, in this isolated place, no housekeeper or something like that living with her. And surely um Savannah Guthrie can afford to pay for a housekeeper to live with her mother. So there's no excuse for this. Yes, sometimes people say like that they don't want anybody else living in their house. I actually have a patient now whose mother is in a similar condition, although she's not isolated. She lives near San Francisco, and in a house, but where there are lots of houses next to each other on the block, and people who care. And she does actually have a housekeeper who doesn't live there all the time, but who comes almost every day. So, but she's now the daughter who is my patient, um, is going there more often to be with her mother, and is trying to get her mother to agree to have somebody live there. I mean, there's certainly enough room, and there's certainly enough room in Nancy Guthrie's house. It's a big house. Anyway, so what happened was on Sat the she was abducted sometime between Saturday night and Sunday morning this past weekend. And she supposedly went with her other daughter to dinner and to play mahjong. And this other daughter drove her home. And that is the last that anybody saw her. And that was about 9:45 at night, Saturday night. And then what happened was the next day, Sunday, the mother didn't appear at church as she usually does. And so people, it's a close-knit community, apparently, even though they don't live close. Uh, they're close-knit emotionally. And so they noticed that the mother wasn't there. And they called one of the daughters, one of the adult children, and they called the police or 911 or something. And that started this whole hunt. They are really pulling out all the stops with like helicopters and homicide division looking for her. A ton of police, investigators, etc., are out there trying to find her. So what they have come to realize is that they believe that she was abducted because she didn't take things that she would ordinarily have taken if she was just going out on her own, like let's say going to church the next day like she was supposed to. She left her phone, she left her medication, which she's supposed to take every day. She left her watch, um, and other personal kinds of things. And they also found blood, and they believe that the abductor injured her in some way. Not a lot of blood, not like she was stabbed or anything. And so let me and so now and they're still out there looking for her. And this is supposed to be a very affluent part of Arizona, but affluent, but still very isolated. So, Now, another sort of a new development is that her pacemaker was supposed to be synced with her phone, and her phone was inside her home. So, what likely, and it's not registering her pacemaker. So either she's dead, or they took her too far away, where it can't connect to the watch. I'm not sure what the number of feet or miles are, but further, too far from the watch. They believe that she may have been dragged from her bed in the middle of the night. I said before, they found blood drops leading from the entryway of the house to the outside, towards the driveway. Her car was there too. So the timeline is that the mother Nancy was having dinner, as I started to say, with her daughter Annie, and they returned home at 9:45. Um, then 2 o'clock on Sunday morning, they think that she was abducted at around 2 a.m. 11 a.m. is when the church noticed that she wasn't there. 12:15 p.m., this is on Sunday, they noticed the blood drops. Then on Monday, um, they've been looking for her since Sunday, since they reported that she was missing. Um, what else? Now, Savannah Guthrie was supposed to be representing her her show at the Olympics. She was supposed to be gone by now to be the host or be the reporter for the Olympics, and for NBC. And the thing is that the medication that she takes, she needs to take it every 24 hours. And so it's, been 4 days. So obviously she could have died from uh, not getting her medication, especially if it was heart medication, because you know, that is it's not like allergy pills. Um, they're saying they don't think she was smuggled across the Mexican border, but the Mexican border is only 60 miles from Tucson, which is where she lives. So, so it might be, my thought is that there could be someone connected to a cartel, or or some criminal um group that that purposely abducted her because they wanted to have Savannah Guthrie convey their message, whatever that is, to the world. So, like, for example, if it has something to do with immigrants, being angry that illegal immigrants, are being sent back to wherever they came from, which would include Mexico, or which would include going through Mexico. Perhaps the person this is supposed to be like payback. Um, what else? Oh, there was apparently a vehicle that was seen in the area, so they're looking for that too. Now, another thing that bothers me, besides the fact that she was not very well supervised, both in terms of security system, a a housekeeper, things like that, but also suppose so all I have heard, and I've been doing a lot of research on this, um the reward for information about her so far is only $2,500. Now, it was some organization who offered that, but I mean, why Savannah isn't putting out, like, or making it clear, putting it out in the media, which she could make happen in minutes, that she's offering $500,000, $500,000. I'll bet you that would get response more quickly than 2,500. So why is that? I mean, I'd hate to think that there was some kind of internal family, I don't know, arguing over the will or something or other. I don't know that to be the case, but if my mother, I can tell you this, if my mother were missing, if this had happened to my mother, first of all, I wouldn't have let my mother stay alone in a house in the rural area of Tucson. But if it had happened, I would be doing more at this point. I'd be offering up, I'd sell my house, I'd sell whatever I could to offer a huge reward. And so it's kind of disappointing to tell you the truth. All right, when we come back, I'm going to be talking to you about um, the protesters in Minneapolis and all over the country. I have divided them into seven psychiatric syndromes. And I think that the people in these um, anti-ICE, I don't, you can't really call them protests because they're rebellions. There's something far worse than protests. Um, so I have, so, I'm sure you've probably heard, maybe you yourself have said, these people are crazy. They're putting themselves in front of ISIS and they could get killed. And, why are they doing this? Why are they instigating all this violence? So the truth is, in my opinion, that there is a lot of mental illness in this group. Now, there are a lot of other reasons also why they're doing this, but mental illness is a part of it. So when we come back, I will talk to you about the seven types of mental illness that I think are most prevalent in these groups. And welcome back to Dr. Carole's Couch. I'm your psychiatrist host, Dr. Carole Lieberman. Today we're talking about Dr. Carole takes you behind the headlines. So far, I've talked to you about Nancy Guthrie, the mother of Savannah Guthrie, who is missing and who the police believe has been abducted from her home in rural Arizona. And as I was explaining, the reason why I'm talking to you about that today is not so much because I think we're going to come up with an answer, with a solution, with who done it, but because I want to make the point that parents, that children, adult children, should take better care of their parents than to leave them with a heart condition, a pacemaker. I mean, a pacemaker, you can go at any moment with a pacemaker. It's supposed to be keeping pace, keeping your heart beating in a certain pace, but those things can go wrong, can have a flub instead of a dub any minute. And I don't know why she's not living with one of the children, or why one of the children aren't living with her, or why they didn't get a housekeeper at least to live in her house and take care of you know, take care of some things for her. Um, and anyhow, so it's really a countdown. It's really very dangerous because she does not have the medication that she's supposed to take every day with her. All right, now I'm going to talk to you about another kind of a switching. That was kind of sort of a personal story of one person's abduction. But now I'm going to be talking to you about the multi-person, the riots basically that are going on in many places around America because of ICE agents trying to do their job. Now, ICE agents are supposed to look for and arrest people who are in America illegally. And there are thousands and thousands of people, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, who are in America, probably millions, who are in America illegally. And for various reasons. One, of course, the main reason is that they've come across the borders, either from the northern part of the United States, from Canada, or the southern part from Mexico. And even if they weren't from those countries specifically, they were crossing through those countries to come into the United States. So that's been going on during Biden's whole term. And he's been just letting them in and not caring who they are or what country they come from. Uh, some people will say, well, I'm a child of immigrants. I mean, people speaking for themselves say, I'm a child of immigrants and we should just let them all be here. Why are we taking them? Why are we looking for them? Why are we deporting them? That's not nice. They came here and this is supposed to be a melting pot. New York is supposed to be a melting pot. It's certainly melting these days with Mamdani as the mayor, but that's a whole other story. Um, so so why do we need to get rid of illegal migrants? Well, because for one thing, they are eating up social service monies. They're getting. I'm born and bred in New York. I was born and bred in New York City, but I live in California now. And both of those states are at this moment, with Governor Newsom in California and Mayor Mamdani in New York. I would be in bad shape wherever I was, although New York right now is worse. But anyhow, so so in California, according to Newsom, he's given everybody, if you're an illegal immigrant in California, I shouldn't maybe I shouldn't say this because it'll bring even more people here. But he gives them all kinds of benefits that we as taxpayers pay for. I work very, very hard every day. I get up at 5 o'clock in the morning and I have work, lists for my lists of things that I'm supposed to do. So I don't think it's fair that, and if you think I'm terrible, tell me I'm terrible. But I don't think it's fair that all my hard work, which then goes into my taxes, should be paying for people who come over here illegally and get free everything. Um, I'm a what would I be? I am a grandchild or great grandchild, I guess a great grandchild of immigrants. My mother's parents came from um, came from Russia and came from Austria, and my father's parents came from Poland. But when they came to the United States, when their parents, grandparents, came to the United States, they didn't go on any rolls, any social security or whatever you call it, the benefits. They didn't go around trying to collect as many benefits as they can. Now in New York, you get cell phones, you get hotel stays, you get food, you get all these kinds of things. Why? Because they did something illegal. So, I mean, my grandparents and I mean great grandparents and then grandparents. My grandfather used to tell a story of how because his father died when he was young, and after they came over here from Austria, and so my grandfather used to sell newspapers, and he used to walk up and down the streets in New York City, selling newspapers. And he was like he was the eldest, so he was the main support for his siblings. And then he did other jobs. In the end, he wound up owning a business and he made a ton of money. Now, made a ton of money through hard work, starting as a boy selling newspapers in the snow. He used to talk about how he had holes in his shoes, and so when he'd walk in the snow, his feet would be soaking wet and frozen for the whole day. But that's not what the kind of immigrant that we have coming over today. I mean, not to say that some of them don't work hard. Yes, they do. Some of them do. They work in the fields, they work as gardeners, they work as various things. There are some who do work hard, but the majority just live off the doles, live off these social services. Um, so anyhow, so there's that. There are people from that came over during the Biden administration. Then there were the 80,000 Afghans who Biden brought over from Afghanistan because when he had that horrible, chaotic withdrawal, which was the worst thing. That is what has started the world, what did start the world on its pathway downhill. Because after he showed that America was Biden, I'm talking about, after Biden showed that America was so weak that it surrendered to the Taliban, basically, um, then everybody else, all our other enemies, felt emboldened. They felt like they could do whatever they wanted, take advantage of America for one thing. Um, so Biden brought over 80,000 Afghans. Some of the Afghans supposedly had helped Americans, like with translations and so on. But there, as you uh, presumably saw in the videos of all of this in the news, it was total chaos in Afghanistan when America left, when America troops left. So these people who came over, the 80,000 of them, were certainly not vetted properly, not checked to see whether they were terrorists or not. And they were just brought over, and they're all over America. And really, most of them do have the heart of a terrorist. And it's very dangerous that they are spread all over America. Plus, some of them have gotten arrested already for various things like rape, because in their country, raping little kids wasn't illegal. So when they're in America, they do it, they have continued, some of them have continued to do it because that was like normal. So there's all of these kinds of things going on. Then, of course, there's also bringing over diseases that America hadn't had in a long time. Um, and they weren't checked. Of course, if they're coming over illegally, crossing the border, they're not being checked by a doctor for physical problems, what kind of contagious diseases they have. Tuberculosis is another one that they're bringing over, have brought over. I mean, hopefully, um, thank goodness for President Trump, bottom line, because he realizes all of these things. And that, which is why he ran on a platform where he said, if you elect me, I'm going to get rid of, he didn't say get rid of, I'm saying that. He said, words to the effect, I'm going to deport, I'm going to find out who are all the illegal immigrants who are here, and especially the ones who have committed criminal acts already, and I'm going to deport them back to where they belong, whatever country they came from. And that is what he is trying to do now. But there are countless judges who are trying to stop him, who are, just the other day, there was a woman judge in New York, and there was a man who was charged and found guilty, I believe, of rape or murder or something. And she sent him out the back door. She didn't want him to get picked up by ICE, so she let him go out the back door of the courthouse. I mean, as a judge, of course, she got disbarred after that. But I mean, we in order to keep America safe, we have to get rid of people who are illegal because, I mean, of course, not to mention the drug trade and all of that. Um, so getting back to ICE. So because of all this, even though that's what people voted him in, that was part of what they voted for, a vast majority of Americans voted Trump in, and they knew what his platform was. They knew that this was part of it. They liked that this was part of it. But obviously not the people who are protesting against ICE. They didn't like it. They don't like it. So So, now the protesters are made up of all different kinds of people. Um, there are people who, I mean, not all of them are mentally ill. There are some who were paid to be there, uh, by Soros and other people like him, people who want to destroy America. Um, and then there are people um, uh, who just get who were there who get caught up in it for various reasons, but those people, a lot of those people are mentally ill. If they didn't have some kind of specific reason, I mean, not that, I mean, certainly you could say that there's a mental illness to that too, taking money to attack ICE people. There's also some kind of mental illness with that. But anyhow, um first of all, the people who are in the news, in the mainstream news, you will hear them called protesters, but they are not protesters. Protesters are people who carry slogans, uh, carry placards, charts and with words on it, slogans, things like saying basically, like "ice out." That's the thing, actually, ice out. Um, but but there are a lot of people who aren't just standing there with signs. It's really mainly now gotten to be people who um who attack the ICE agents themselves, who provoke the ICE agents and attack the ICE agents and urge other people to attack the ICE agents. So I call them rebels. Um, objectors, I mean, demonstrators or protesters carry these placards or flags. They wear clothes with slogans on it or symbolic colors. They chant or shout repetitive phrases that make it clear what they're objecting to. Those are protesters. But protesters, the word protester doesn't apply to someone who provokes or attacks police or ICE or other authority figures with their car or weapon or their bare hands. They don't loot. Protesters don't loot. Once you rise to this more aggressive, violent kinds of acts, that is no longer being a protester. Now, these anti-ICE rebels, as I call them, if they are arrested, which rarely happens, but if they are arrested, I think it's happening a little more now because people are coming to realize that that's the only way to stop them. Because if there's no consequences, just like there were no consequences to the protesters at colleges, it just goes on and on and on, and they escalate because they want more attention. So these anti-ICE rebels will be quick to say that they are just that they're free to do this because of the First Amendment. But the First Amendment says, I will read it to you. It says, Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof or abridging the freedom of speech or of the press, or the right of the people peaceably to assemble and to petition the government for a redress of grievances. Peacefully is the key word there. It doesn't protect speech that is considered incitement to lawlessness, which includes things like threats, fighting words, and speech integral to criminal conduct. But that is what most of the speech is, that the people who are the rioters, the rebels against ICE, are espousing. Now, it used to be that policemen would come to elementary schools. It happened in my school, and I'm sure it might have happened in your school. They come and they answer questions, they talk about their job. Some parts of it, obviously in elementary school, they don't want to scare the kids. Um, and all in all, when you meet a policeman, a friendly policeman in elementary school, you end up feeling respect for him, feeling, he has a hard job, and not thinking about killing him or attacking him. But we don't really have that same phenomenon going on. I mean, yes, there are still policemen who come to certain schools. Unfortunately, it's not the rule as it used to be. It's not every school, but and it's not having the effect of keeping the kids uh, maintaining their respect, because they see other kids, other adults, when they grow up, they see other adults like these rebels attacking, and they get involved. So when we come back, I will tell you about why it is that, or what it is, why it is and what it is, what the 7 mental illnesses are that people have who are in this rebel group, the anti-ICE rebels. So stay tuned. And welcome back to Dr. Carole's Couch. I'm your psychiatrist host, Dr. Carole Lieberman. We've been talking today about, well, I started off by talking about the abduction of Nancy Guthrie, who is the mother of Savannah Guthrie, a Today Show anchor. And there is breaking news. You're hearing it first. And that is that TMZ got a ransom note. Um, and the people who abducted Nancy Guthrie are requesting Bitcoin, a ransom of Bitcoin. Now, the only problem is, or one problem is, that it could be anybody sending a ransom note to TMZ, and they might not have her, or she might be dead already. I mean, I like to think of things positively, but it's been 4 days, and she needed her medication daily. And also, it's very strange that they waited this long, and supposedly it's for a big amount of money. But I would think that between TMZ and Savannah Guthrie and her siblings that and other people who, care about this story, that they might well be able to get the amount of Bitcoin that they need. But is she still alive? I can't, if we are hearing this now, then that means that there hasn't been anything put out there, where Savannah Guthrie has offered a reward money for information leading to the arrest or finding of her mother, which it just boggles my mind. Anyway, I was just about to, talking about minds, I was just about to get to the 7 types of mental illness that people who are anti-rice, anti-ice rebels, say that 3 times quickly, anti-ice rebels, the 7 kinds of mental illnesses that these people have. Um, so now I haven't talked to all the anti-ice rebels. I have talked to some, and that is how I am able to extrapolate these mental illnesses. All right, the first mental illness, and I think that this is the majority of them, is Trump derangement syndrome. Now, Trump derangement syndrome see ICE agents as representatives of Trump. It's like they see his face on them. Um, because everybody knows that he is the one who sent them out. Of course, he didn't make up ICE agents. I mean, there were ICE agents before Trump ever got to be president, and it's in the Constitution that you are not allowed to illegally cross the border. So he didn't make up ICE or the reasons why why the job of ICE is to collect these illegal immigrants and to take them out of America. Um, so here are the seven deadly sins, 7 diagnostic categories of the people who are rebelling against ICE. So Trump derangement syndrome, first of all. Now, I have defined Trump derangement syndrome, and I have been working on this for a year, because uh, I am planning to um, send a proposal to the American Psychiatric Association to put Trump derangement syndrome into their diagnostic and statistical manual, the DSM. And so my definition of Trump derangement syndrome is an irrational quasi-psychotic hatred, of anything Trump, resulting in rage and over-the-top efforts to destroy him and his work. It can spread to people and projects that are closely associated with Trump, like J.D. Vance, Elon Musk, and ICE agents. Then the second type is people who have the second type of these rebels, are people who have celebrity worship syndrome. Now, this is an obsessive addictive disorder, which is where they are more intensely addicted, so to speak, worshiping, than just a fan. And these rebels are motivated by the celebrity they idolize to act on what they believe the celebrity would want, meaning celebrities who are anti-ICE. Now, we just had the Grammys, and it was like a fest of an anti-ICE fest. People were wearing pins. People when they came up to get their award, they gave speeches about ICE. How much they're against ICE and all that. And what does that do? That makes people in the audience, especially people who like these performers to begin with, it makes them feel that they should do what their performer wants, mainly meaning attack ICE. So especially we had Bad Bunny, who, as you probably know, is going to be the halftime show for the Super Bowl, and also Billie Eilish. They particularly made particularly noteworthy stands against ICE. And of course, they have lots of fans, and the fans can go from being just a fan to having celebrity worship syndrome. Um, there were others who denounced ICE at the Grammys and, at the other award shows that we've had recently. Um, I mean, they're normally, unfortunately, whether it's the Oscars or, um, the Golden Globe or whatever kind of award show it is, the people who come up to get their award oftentimes have Hollywood oftentimes has, or most often has, very anti-Republican, anti-Trump views. Um, and so, so they'll make comments either about Trump or about you know, something that Trump uh, believes in, wants to do, and they think it's cool. Okay, the third diagnostic group for people who are these rebels, anti-ICE rebels, I call Mad Hatters. And these are anti-ICE rebels whose behavior fits the category of either oppositional defiant disorder or a more severe diagnosis of conduct disorder. Now, people with oppositional defiant disorder have emotional dysregulation. They can't regulate their emotions. And this makes them angry and irritable and defiant and argumentative with authority figures. Now, the people with conduct disorders act out on their emotions. They don't just have these dysregulated emotions. They actually want to act out on them, and they want, and usually it's in destructive ways because they're so angry, aggressive. They destroy property. They break major societal rules. So that's the third type. The fourth type is I call them lost souls. These, excuse me. These are people who are lonely and they feel empty and they have empty lives and they are lacking purpose and direction. So they just kind of float around in the world lost. Now, when the anti-ICE mob mentality comes to their town, it gives them a purpose and a direction. Aha, I'll join this group. Yeah, ICE is bad. I agree. I'm going to be part of that. And now they feel alive and they feel part of a group. They have friends. So, I don't want to run out of time. I could go on talking about these people forever. The fifth group is I call them the regressed rioters. To regress, it means like you go back in time, whatever age you are, you regress to an earlier age and an earlier stage of development. So some people in these anti-ICE groups um, regress to being teenagers. And what happens when you're a teenager? You're rebellious. So they're rebellious. Some of them regress all the way to being a 2-year-old. And there's the terrible twos. What are the terrible twos? It's when people have tantrums. Little kids, 2-year-olds, have terrible two tantrums. And so these people, have with this mental illness, or this regression, they have their temper tantrums on the ICE agents. Then number 6, Mr. and Mrs. Personality. There are people who have certain personality disorders where they are more likely to be caught up amongst the rebels. So, for example, people with paranoid personality disorders. If you're paranoid, you see ICE agents as really very dangerous and threatening. So it's easy for you to get caught up in being against them and attacking them. Then narcissistic personality disorder. These are people who think the world revolves around them. And so if this is what's happening in the world, then they should be in it. Then borderline people, personalities, disorders. These are people who have very intense emotions, and sometimes they love you and sometimes they hate you. And so, obviously they're in the hating phase of the ICE agents. Then an antisocial personality disorder. Person with that, antisocial means doing things against society. And then last but not least, for this type, this personality disorder group, is the schizotypal personalities. And these aren't people who are schizophrenic. They're not psychotic. They don't have schizophrenia. But schizotypal is like a prodrome, or it's like a disorder where uh, it's not full-fledged schizophrenia, but you have a lot of the same symptoms, like being sort of isolate and things like that. You may hear things and see things, but to a lesser degree than someone with schizophrenia has. Then, last but not least, the seventh group is substance abusers. Now, when you are abusing alcohol or drugs, uh, when you're high on alcohol and drugs, a lot of people like to find a party so that they can have more stimulation and more other people around to enjoy this high state with, and so on. So to them, the anti-ice rebels look like they're having a party. So they want to join them. Now, all of these people, all of these different psychological problems, the people with these problems are more vulnerable to getting wrapped up in with these rioters um, to attack ICE in this mass hysteria. And so now if you know somebody who is an anti-ICE rioter, and people when if you don't believe that they have gone crazy, some of them are like they've done sit-ins at Target to say because Target lets ICE use their restrooms, so they've been attacking Target and sitting in. They go on dating apps and try to get matched up with an ICE agent, and then they try to get them to send nude pictures, and then they try to expose them and dox them and all of that. Then there's been nurses who recommend putting things in IVs, like if an ICE agent has to go, is beaten up and goes to the hospital, there are nurses who are like on TikTok, for example, telling other nurses, give them this. This will kill them. And then there are things on TikTok where people are telling other people, potential rioters, to get your affairs in order, go out there, put your life on the line in order to kill or maim, hurt, destroy ICE agents. In other words, they're telling people that this is the most important thing you can do with your life. Is to, this is America, this is saving America, when in fact it's the very opposite. It's destroying America. But I mean, imagine that, telling people, get your affairs in order, put your own life on the line to get rid of these ICE agents. That's crazy. Well, thank you for listening to Dr. Carole's Couch, listening to me rant, and I will be back next week.